Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. It's Saturday, October the 25th, and I've just watched, thank you subscriber Bry who helped me watch it, an excellent heavyweight fight between Joseph Parker from New Zealand and Britain's Fabio Wardley. Now, I'm really hopeful that the story of this fight isn't about the stoppage. For those of you who don't know, the referee, Howard Foster of Great Britain, stepped in to save Joseph Parker in the 11th round, thereby awarding the fight by way of stoppage to Fabio Wardley. The question will be, was the stoppage early? I am certain that the internet is going to be abuzz with a certain segment of the boxing fans who say, terrible stoppage, stopped too early, British bias, Howard Foster, etc., etc., etc. And then there's going to be another group of people who say, well, look, Joseph Parker didn't answer a barrage of blows from Fabio Wardley. Fabio still had gas in the tank. He was still throwing. Save the fighter from potentially irreparable harm. Where do I sit on this? Well, first of all, I was neutral on who I wanted to win. I'm a Canadian, so I'm not sort of bound by patriotism to either. I like them both. I thought that Joseph Parker was going to win, but I did say there was always a possibility, because of course, there is that possibility when dealing with Fabio, that Fabio is going to pull something out of the hat and stop the fight. Where do I sit on the stoppage? Well, I'm of the generation that started watching boxing in the 1960s. And in those days and through the 70s and the 80s, you would have not seen a stoppage under those circumstances. You would have seen the fight be allowed to go its natural course, which might just have been another dozen or so shots, or might have been even fewer. But we live in different times, and I don't think it was early, but on the other hand, I would have liked to have seen it be more conclusive so that this potential controversy about the stoppage doesn't take over the story, because that shouldn't be the story. The story should be about two incredibly brave, durable, professional boxers who came to fight. And come to fight they most certainly did, really from the get-go. And in fact, as early as the second round, I thought, we're going to see an early night, because Joseph Parker was in trouble. And in fact, between second and third round, Andy Lee was saying, well, you've taken the worst of it. It's never going to be that bad again. A little bit of maybe kidding his fighter. And I was thinking, wow, this is going to be over very soon. Well, of course it wasn't. Joseph Parker, I won't say dominated, because that's not the right word. Joseph Parker won more rounds between the second round and ultimately getting stopped in the 11th, but not many. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. One of the things that struck me about this fight is how tough both men were. Fabio Wardley, there may have been questions about, could Wardley take a blow from a real big puncher? Now, Parker isn't known as the biggest puncher, but probably the heaviest puncher that Wardley's been in with. Well, if anybody was having doubts, those doubts are now set aside, because Wardley took an absolute beating throughout the fight in some rounds and didn't go down, didn't even seem overly buzzed. Whenever he was hurt or appeared to be hurt, he was firing back. Flip side, there were shots that Joseph Parker took that we know have dropped other fighters in the past. So he took Fabio Wardley's best shots and prevailed through them, coming back with his own. many times with his left hook, an overhand right. Like he was, both these fighters, durable, absolutely durable. But it was in the 10th round where things started to swing. And I think that Joseph Parker, who had thrown everything at Wardley and hadn't stopped Wardley. Remember, Joseph Parker's 262 pounds, may have sort of been like, wow, I've done everything I can against a fighter who doesn't know how to lose. Because that, if there's one thing I think we could now say about Wardley, no matter what pressure he's under, whether he thinks he's down on the cards or whatever, he just doesn't have quit in him. And it was about the 10th round that I noticed that Parker seemed to be not out of plans, but seemed to slightly unravel a bit. Wardley had a strong round, and then in the 11th round, there was a little bit of a cut over Parker's eye. It seemed to be bothering him, even though it wasn't a big cut. And at that point, Wardley started to apply the pressure. And I watched the stoppage a couple of times. I would say about 26 or 27 seconds of unanswered shots. I think Parker threw one shot back, and he wasn't holding. He just was he wasn't out on his feet either, which again will feed into this controversy. He wasn't firing back. And Fabio was just unloading. Like, what a finisher. There aren't that many finishers I can think of like Fabio Wardley. And there might be some people who say, well, he was gassed out, he'd punched himself out, he had nothing left to throw, Parker was going to come back. I didn't see it that way myself. I mean, I think that Wardley still had another bunch of ammunition to unload. An excellent fight. Like, there wasn't a boring moment in the fight. Sometimes, especially when you're watching heavyweights, you have a bit of action, then you have a bit of move around, and you have a bit of holding, and then you have a bit of chess matching. We're not talking chess here. We might be talking checkers, but not chess. These guys just came to really duke it out, and duke it out they did. You can't really truly say a bad word about either fighter. You can admire both fighters. I do feel a little bit sorry for Joseph Parker, who's now not going to get the opportunity that he so richly deserved to fight Alexander Usyk. And, as I've been saying, it sounds a bit funny when you sort of feel sorry for a multi-millionaire, but I do. On the other hand, what a Hollywood story for Fabio Wardley, who started in his white-collar, unlicensed boxing back in 2016 or so, around the time that Parker was a world champion. And now his next fight is against Alexander Usyk. And I'm a little disappointed I'm not going to get to see Joseph Parker and Alexander Usyk, but I'm almost literally salivating at the thought of seeing Fabio Wardley, a relatively unsophisticated, in comparison to Usyk, incredibly strong, devastating puncher with an endless gas tank, who just doesn't know how to lose against a scientific master of the sport. That's going to be such an amazing clash. It's almost that the styles are going to be so different that it can't help but be a great fight. Way too early to predict. I mean, I just wish that Alexander Usyk was a bit younger, because, of course, by the time these two guys meet in the ring, Wardley might be 31, but Alexander Usyk would be 39. But anybody who thinks that Wardley is, going to be stopped by X, Y, or Z fighter, I think they're going to be in for a surprise, because Joseph Parker may not be the biggest puncher in the division, but at 262 pounds, he sure knows how to hit. And it wasn't like he hit Wardley once. He landed a whole bunch of shots on Wardley, and Wardley didn't go down. having said that, neither did Parker. So the next revolution in Fabio Wardley's just amazing career is going to be stepping in the ring with Alexander Usyk, and I think that's going to be really exciting. Getting back to this fight, if the fight had ended, if the bell had gone and we'd been tallying up scorecards, I would have put Joseph Parker slightly ahead on the scorecards, but not as much as I would have thought I would have. And here's another thing that just my opinion, my observation. Every time Wardley fights, he gets better. He also boxed better than I was anticipating him boxing. Now, some people might say, well, Joseph Parker kind of played the game that suited Fabio Wardley most. And maybe there's some merit to that. But Wardley, to say he's a quick learner would be an understatement. He boxed a lot better. But it's his heart and his determination and his will. It's a case almost of mind over matter. Those are the stories about this fight. Like, I'm a fan of Parker and Wardley. So, I still like both. And I like both even more than I liked them before the first bell. Like, both these fighters should be able to leave with their heads held high. For Joseph Parker, there's going to be a rebuilding process. I can't imagine how gutted he must feel. For Fabio Wardley, he's soaring with the eagles, and he's just, that far away from the absolute peak of the summit. In a post-fight ring interview, he was saying how much he wants it, that he's not satisfied with ever getting to a certain level. I'm sure that there are going to be, many more interviews given, and we'll learn a lot more. I just wanted to get this video out before I kind of listen to too much of anybody talking, particularly other content creators, because you know how it is. You watch a video and then you kind of adopt some of their thinking. So this is kind of raw, unfiltered. A great fight. Absolutely take my hat off to both fighters. Sorry for Joseph Parker. Cheering for Fabio Wardley. Let's not let the story of the stoppage take anything away from what this fight was about, which is two warriors who came to fight and absolutely delivered. That's my take. Next week, I'll probably have a guest on and we can have a more of a proper debrief, if you like. But here's I think the kids might say my hot take on things. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the fight. Please like, share, and subscribe if you can. And wherever you are in the world, have a fabulous day. Cheers. Bye-bye.